Welcome to the Side Action Podcast, the sports gambling show that covers everything in the world of sports betting from A through Z. We'll cover the four major sports, as well as anything and everything in between worth some action, and will increase the size of your bankroll. And here we go.
Welcome to the Side Action Podcast, episode 81, the 12th of season 3. This is Jim Weglars, a.k.a. Wegs. You can follow me at Wegspool on Twitter and Instagram.
And this is Steve Roberts, a.k.a. Action. You can follow me on Twitter at 31sroberts.
Follow the podcast at Side Action Pod on Twitter and also on YouTube. So, Action, you're mobile. You're in Utah now, right?
Yeah, Utah today. We're doing a little bit of a West Coast excursion here. We spent the last couple of days in Las Vegas over the weekend and got in a little bit of table games and football watching. And then we kind of shifted our vacation mode into the more outdoors versions, which Melissa likes a lot better. We did some rock climbing yesterday. And
yeah, I saw that.
Drove up to Utah this morning, and we're in the beautiful city of St. George, just across the border. Going to do some more hiking and outdoor stuff the next couple of days.
Cool.
So, another remote studio here for the Side Action Podcast.
Yeah, you're hitting all the states, man. You were in South Carolina a couple weeks ago, and now you're in Utah, so worldwide. Maybe we'll pick up some listeners there, I'm sure.
Yeah, of course. We're passing out coupons or coasters everywhere.
Yeah, coasters everywhere. Coasters for anyone.
How are you doing? How's the weekend?
It's been the weekend was fine. Not too interesting. Did try, in Chicago, as I've mentioned before, there's the shutdown, and there's still outdoor, quote unquote, outdoor dining in these igloo things. Actually, they've got these kind of big blow up tent things, and there's also the igloo, and then there's the greenhouse. The greenhouse is actually a fixed structure that I've seen. I haven't been in the greenhouse, but I went in my first igloo on Friday night. That was pretty nice.
Cool.
They got a little heater in there. It wasn't too bad. I haven't been in there, like the last 3 days have been awful. A little snow yesterday in Chicago. Now it's just kind of sleety rain. So it hasn't been that nice. It was kind of nice over the weekend. So yeah, I got out. My daughter's in town now. Sophia, first time since she went to college. So she's back and forth between her mom's house and here, and it's been nice to catch up. She's all grown, got her fancy clothes on. So that's been nice to see. And we're going to spend like the Thanksgiving holiday. We'll see my mom on Friday since my daughter will be by her mom tomorrow for Thanksgiving. So I'll just be watching some football. We'll talk about that. Only 2 games now.
Right.
And then we'll see if I can get outside a little bit more than the last couple days. So
nice. Well, sounds very enjoyable.
Yeah, we'll check it out. So, anyway, let's jump into the episode. I mean, we obviously had, a lot of stuff's been going on the last few days in the NFL, which is, we can talk a little bit more about it here. Our COVID update. We don't have many industry updates these days. A bevy of players. I guess we'll jump over. Arizona has a free safety that's out, but the big talk is Baltimore. When I did the list yesterday, it looked like 4 players from Baltimore. Pernell McPhee, who was a former Bear, the 2 running backs, D.K. Dobbins and Mark Ingram, and then Brandon Williams, who was out with an injury but also is on the COVID list now. I guess I want to jump into this. I guess I'm kind of confused. Like, they're postponing this game to Saturday from what I've read, or possibly. What makes the NFL decide to postpone versus just play the game? There's been other teams that have had multiple players out, haven't there?
Yeah, and I read Sunday. Is there Saturday or Sunday? Either way.
It's Sunday.
Okay.
Yeah, it's Sunday. I just didn't see if there was a time determined yet.
I believe I saw the game is going to fit into that 1 o'clock window. Unfortunately, there's like a bevy of games at 1 o'clock and only 3 in the afternoon.
Right.
So, But, you raise a really good question. I'm not sure why they decided to just simply postpone the game. Like you mentioned earlier in the season, the San Francisco 49ers were in a similar situation and had to play on Thursday night against the Packers. So I can only imagine that the Steelers got to be a little bit pissed off, considering now they've had their bye week taken away initially, and now their advantage against Baltimore is going to be definitely mitigated given the pushback.
Yeah, I think it was Juju who tweeted out. He's like, "Yeah, we got our bye week taken away, and then our primetime game, against the Ravens." I mean, it's obviously an advantage for the Ravens. I mean, going to the game tomorrow, certainly was going to be a definite advantage for Pittsburgh if, you're missing these players. But, yeah, I guess, I mean, maybe it has to do with the facility. Maybe the facility was closed for 2 days. I don't really know. But I haven't been able to research, what the NFL rules are. But it seems a little bit fishy to me. But some of the other players, Bears player Eddie Jackson's on that list, a good free safety. Cleveland's got a couple of guys, defensive end Joe Jackson and Myles Garrett. I don't know if they're trace or protocol. And then I've got the Rams, Trent Brown, the offensive tackle, who's pretty important. And they already were down, Whitworth. And then Miami has Jesse Davis, an offensive tackle. And then lastly, your guy Adam Thielen in Minnesota. So there's some bigger names on this list this week.
Yeah, it's definitely picking up in terms of the higher profile players. And I just saw DeForest Buckner before we jumped on here, the Colts defensive tackle, added to that list as well. So probably, like we say every week, it's Wednesday now as we're recording a day earlier than normal. And certainly there's going to be more names that are added to this list between now and then.
That's right. True. Well, let's review last week first, and we'll kind of talk about the impact of this going into next week or this week. So for week 11, back to maybe a normal split, but the home teams are still kind of faring better, than earlier in the season. There were 8 home winners versus 6 road winners, but the dogs did come back this week. Only 5 favorites covered in my numbers this week with 9 dogs coming in. So that's something. The unders and overs are basically the same. They've kind of been a little bit shaded to the under, 6 overs and 8 unders. So anything on this list that kind of steps out on you this week?
Well, I mean, I think we've hit on it many times before. The underdogs seem like they're really barking this year. And, the home teams fared a little bit better than normal, as we've seen in weeks past where those road teams rise up a little bit. But nothing that I really gleaned from this. I think it's more at this point in the season, you're looking at your matchup numbers and how defensive lines fare versus offensive lines more so than any of these statistical trends.
Right. It seems like it's mostly evening out, except for the dogs. They're still, over on the season, definitely dominating. Mm-hmm. So we'll see. As we roll into the week, positives I wrote down. I mean, the first one was Taysom Hill. We thought when we taped last week, I think we thought that James Winston was going to start, but obviously the man love for Taysom Hill and the coach Sean Payton is noted, but he actually played really well. I mean, he played under control. He threw the ball fairly well. I mean, 18 to 23 is a good percentage, but more than that, he ran in 2 touchdowns and had 51 yards rushing. It was a big part of their offense. And they really dominated the Falcons in this one. I think it was 24-9 was the final score. So they covered with ease. We were kind of looking at the Saints when it was Winston. I guess we should have stayed on him.
Yeah. Taysom Hill definitely played really well in that role. And I think I saw that Sean Payton was going around retweeting a lot of the that Atlanta Falcons defensive players were questioning the move to Taysom Hill. Sure. And he was just rubbing dirt in their face, which I thought was hilarious. But, I mean, one thing that I'll say was definitely noticeable is that their red zone offense is a lot more dynamic with him under center. I think you mentioned it. He ran in 2 touchdowns, and it certainly gives them a little bit more flair in the red zone when you have to account for Hill as the runner.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you there. It does, on fantasy side, it lowers the value of the running backs, but yeah, it definitely gives him. I mean, and they look good. They look good. But I will say I didn't put this as a positive. Kind of the handicap that we talked about last week. The defense is playing great. They really held down this high-flying Atlanta offense to 9 points. That's impressive. I mean, it was really 3 field goals early too. They didn't do anything in the second half really in this game.
Yep, that defense is playing very well.
Next one is your guys, your Colts defense. This is 2 weeks in a row now where they kind of flipped the switch in the second half, where they played remarkably well in the second half against Aaron Rodgers and the Pack. And we did pick this in the contest, but at halftime wasn't looking too good action. We were down, 28-14. Mm-hmm. Luckily, the Colts just kind of dominated time of possession and kept the ball away and only limited Green Bay to 3 points in the second half. And they did force overtime, but the Colts were able to dominate this one on the defensive end.
Yeah, they played really well defensively, especially in that second half. It appears they made some adjustments going into the locker room. And I
Mm-hmm.
will admit that a few untimely Green Bay turnovers certainly helped the Colts to the cover in that one. You had not only MVS in overtime that gave the Colts the ball back, but just
Right.
earlier in the fourth quarter, there's another big turnover by the Pack, which set up the Colts for another touchdown. So, I mean, when you look at the box score, though, it's pretty even. Rivers and Rodgers both threw
Yeah.
for about 300 yards, and I got to say, they're
Right.
pretty evenly matched teams.
They are, and that's kind of what the handicap was. That obviously 1.5 was their fair by 1.5, and it did come down to the field goal in overtime. So your guy Blankenship, although he did miss one off the crossbar from 50. I don't know if you saw that one in the first
Yeah.
half. I was kind of pissed at.
Yeah, how
Um,
is a 50-yard field goal short? I can't believe he left that short.
I know. I mean, just doink, but whatever. They won the game. The next one I noted is the Raiders. I don't know if they have a formula to beat Kansas City, but they have been the team this year that has really shown that they can beat this team. They beat them once. They should have beat them on Sunday. I'm not sure what he's doing, at least John Gruden is doing, to make this happen, but it took a very late drive by Patrick Mahomes in the final minute to win this game 35-31, and they of course, did not cover the number, which we were talking about. And actually the contest, most everybody took the Kansas City in this one, so we kind of gained the game in that respect. What do you think they're doing to make this happen?
I mean, they're just dropping back and throwing the ball against them. Carr was excellent on Sunday. I mean, I think he completed each of his first 11 passes in the game, and it's pretty clear that the Kansas City defense is not playing up to the level that we saw them last year, which really, I mean, not that their defense was ever anything to write home about, but they were certainly capable of stopping opponents. And the Raiders definitely have the script to do it. There's got to give some credit to John Gruden, I think, as well.
Mm-hmm. It seems like somebody was writing this, maybe it was, I don't know, it was ESPN follow-up or something. I mean, they decided to do the opposite of what a lot of teams, instead of doing a grind-down method and defense team, they're doing like, we'll just score with them. They got a lot of speed on the field. You've got a dynamic tight end. You've got a really good running back. I didn't think Carr was capable of doing this, so he's actually showing up this year. But they're just deciding to score with them. Let's go toe to toe and try to outscore them, and they almost did it again. Well, let's look at the negatives now. Action, this guy, and he's on both my fantasy teams, FYI. Carson Wentz, boy, he stinks. I just don't understand. At some point, you got to go to Hurts, right? I mean, he throws that lollipop pick 6 in the first half, which was really the only touchdown that they could muster. I mean, the Browns against that defense, and then takes that terrible safety, in the end zone sack, and really had 2 picks. One got reversed, but he had a pick late to end the game. I just don't understand what's going on with him. Maybe, you could blame the offensive line, but at some point you've got to start saying that this is a Wentz problem and not just an offensive line, everybody else's problem. And not to mention, they didn't cover for us again in this one. The Browns won 22-17. It really, like the stuff I was talking about, it's too bad. Philly was playing pretty good defense.
Yeah, they were. I mean, they held the Browns a decent total on that side of the ball. It was really all on Carson Wentz's shoulder, and I think he's quickly becoming a turnover machine if he hasn't already been labeled that, because not only the interceptions, I think he leads the league in quarterback fumbles and another 5 sacks against him this week, which I don't think you can all put on the offensive line. He's just holding onto the ball way too much, and he needs to just get rid of it. So I agree. You and I were texting on Sunday. It's probably time to look at Jalen Hurts a little bit and see if he can bring a spark to this team, because they're certainly in the thick of the division race.
Right.
Now, I think all 4 teams in the East have 3 wins, so it's going to be an interesting race down the stretch.
Yeah, they're -9 in turnover differential. I mean, that's just not winning football. And they've lost 2 straight now. They're lucky just the division's so bad. But we'll see. It's all going to be, on the field for the NFC East the rest of the way. So maybe they can turn it around. We were texting about this one too. We didn't end up going with this pick, thankfully. Tampa Bay, was playing in primetime again, this time against the Rams. We kind of were feeling that the Rams, really Jared Goff wasn't going to handle the pressure well. I don't know. TB12, man, I've been saying this for the last couple of times. He can't play in primetime anymore. At least he hasn't this year. They're 1-3 straight up, 0-4 against the spread. If he gets pressure, which he has in the last 2 weeks or last 2 times out, the Saints and now the Rams. I mean, he only completed 54% of his passes with 2 INTs. That's 9 interceptions. Or no, sorry, 5 of his 9 interceptions in the last 2 primetime games. It's just, I don't know what's going on. It could be coaching too, but I'm not going to back Brady in primetime.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of folks throughout the media that I listen to say that Brady just can't play past his bedtime. And apparently 8 o'clock is his bedtime because I think you mentioned it. They're 0-4 now, straight up and against the spread. Perhaps.
Well, they're 1-3. They came back against the Giants, but they didn't.
That's right. 0-4 ATS, which is what we're counting on here on this podcast. And I unfortunately ended up on the Tampa Bay side on Monday night, and that was a long game because, on the other side, Jared Goff was great. I admit I had the handicap wrong where the Rams would struggle against that Tampa Bay pass rush, and they didn't whatsoever. They dropped back. They didn't even try to run the ball on Monday.
No.
Goff was just slinging it on every play, and he played a great game.
He played great. I think both the Rams receivers had over 100 yards receiving, if I'm not mistaken, Woods and Kupp, and he was accurate. I mean, he had one Jared Goff moment where he threw a really bad pass to a screen pass right to JPP, but he played well. So, I mean, they're definitely in the mix. I mean, that NFC West is definitely the class of the NFL this year. I mean, they have really good teams, so we'll see how that fares out as they play in their division schedule coming up. Here's one that we didn't do well, and I guess I was always on Miami. I've been on Miami for a while, but Tua played badly in Denver. I don't know if it was the defense or what. He completed 11 of 20 passes for 83 yards, and he got the hook in this one.
Yeah.
The game was pretty close, but they couldn't come back. They lose 20-13 outright, which was one of our picks on Miami. So at least Flores had the guts to go to Fitzmagic to try to win the game because they're in the thick of they could still win the AFC East. This was a tough loss for them.
Yeah, terrible performance by Tua. I didn't catch most of the game, but I think we did text about Tua getting the yank, and I think that really says something about Coach Flores and having the guts to do that. And I suspect that the team will really rally behind that. I'm sure they're going back to Tua this week, although I haven't read that for certain, but I think that a lot of the players on the team will respect that move, and I imagine that Tua will probably bounce back from that performance.
Yeah, I mean, he can. He's got to learn to take his lumps. And then the last one is Anthony Lynn. I know we've been beating this guy up all season. I hate to beat up on the guy, but I did not bet this game. We didn't end up going down this road, thankfully, again, chasing the Chargers, but this team cannot cover a spread, man. It was 31-13 in the third quarter. I think it was like 24-8 and then 31-13 or something like that. So they had these big leads. And it's not that they lost the game outright, but what the hell were they doing with the crazy safety situation? And then they end up only winning by 6, 34-28. The number was 8.5 in the contest. I saw 8 or 9. It depended on where you got it from the book. This is a crusher. I mean, the guys just you can't back them.
No, and I mean, if you look at the box score, they should have won by like 3 touchdowns, 376 yards to 292, and you subtract off 40 for the safety at the end, so it could have looked a lot more lopsided. And I agree with you. I think it just comes down to coaching, and you certainly cannot bet on this team laying a big number. There's no doubt about that. I think they could be a little bit more attractive in underdog situations. But, losing the cover against the number to a Joe Flacco-led Jets team who are actively trying to lose, I might add, is a really tough one to swallow.
Right. You're Jets, man. I should have backed the Jets. This guy, the Jets guy. And we finally came off of them, but whatever. I know. I tried. Well, let's talk about the actual injuries in the league besides COVID. There's a ton of them. I don't know, since it's early in the week, we don't have a lot of practice reports, but I decided to list the big names here. Kyler Murray's got this shoulder issue. He'll probably play. He's listed as questionable in that game. But Julio Jones, hamstring questionable for Atlanta. He's key to that team. So we'll talk about that game a little bit. Joe Burrow, unfortunately, ended his season tearing his ACL and MCL, so he's out for the year. It looks like Cleveland's Denzel Ward at corner's out. I didn't put his injury, actually. I'm not sure what that one is, maybe ankle. And then your guy Stafford's still kind of banged up with that thumb. He's listed as questionable. His whole offense is questionable. You got DeAndre Swift is concussion, but Galladay got ruled out today, didn't he, with his hip? So he's not playing tomorrow. Paris Campbell, he's out, MCL. I don't know if it was a tear or not, but he's on the IR. You've got, I put this for the Raiders. It should be LVR. The Raiders lose Richie Incognito this week with a foot injury to the IR, so he's a big part of that run game. And then you've got guys in New Orleans. You got Marshawn Lattimore. He's got an abdominal thing, questionable. Big Ben, which I guess this kind of helps them that they're not playing tomorrow. I put this on for this, that he had a quad injury, questionable. And Juju Smith-Schuster, his toe is questionable. And then, a couple more. Bo Scarborough for Seattle, he's out with the hamstring, so I don't even know who's going to run the ball up there. And then Tennessee, I don't know if you saw the injury that Jayon Brown, dislocated his elbow. That was horrible. IR. And then lastly, Washington, who is playing tomorrow. Terry McLaurin, their excellent wide receiver, has an ankle issue. So I don't know. We can talk about, I guess, how this impacts some of these lines, but there's a lot of big names on this list, action.
Yeah, certainly some major impacts this week. I think the two big ones are Joe Burrow. Obviously, going out for the Bengals is going to be a huge blow to any ability they have to cover numbers. And then as well, some of the Lions skill position players, I think, are a few names that jump out at me, with Swift and Galladay not likely to play. So definitely major impacts this week. A lot to consider.
No question. So as we get into the previews, and I didn't change this, Week 12 previews, how does the contest work? I mean, I'm not saying we're going to go with games tomorrow, but it's a little bit unique. And when there were 3 games, it was maybe a little more intriguing. But you'd have to get your picks in before kickoff on any of the Thursday games to include them, or how does it work? Do you know how that works?
Yeah, same rules. If we chose to use any of the 2 games now, thankfully, we do have the option of sliding in Baltimore and Pittsburgh. We would have to put in all 5 picks before kickoff tomorrow. So we can chat on them.
We'll stay off these games.
Yeah, I was going to say that too. I mean, I definitely have a lean in the second one, but I don't know that it's strong enough to play them.
Sure. Well, for our listeners, let's talk through the first 2 games that are still on the plate. It's Thanksgiving. Everybody's watching football, eating turkey and, pumpkin pie. So the first one is a kind of an interesting matchup. Houston, who got the win outright against New England last week, is going to Detroit, who's banged up. And Houston opened as a 2-point favorite on the road, 52-point total. Now in Circa, it's 3-point favorite, 51.5-point total. When I first saw this number action, I'm thinking, what the hell are they thinking here? Because Detroit, they play well on Thanksgiving. It's just kind of one of their things, even against anybody. But if we don't know if Stafford's playing or he's banged up, you got no Galladay and you got DeAndre Swift, who probably will play, but he might be a game-time decision. I guess that explains the line then, right?
Yeah, I think it's all about the injuries for the Lions here, because I agree when it first came up and it was listed at Texans -3, it kind of raised my eyebrows too. But I definitely don't really have much interest in this game whatsoever, given all of the Lions' missing pieces.
Right. Gotcha. Second game, kind of interesting. Washington against Dallas. Now, Dallas, both teams won last week. Shocker. Is this like the first week that 2 NFC East teams have won in the same week? Could be.
That's likely.
So Washington had a big win, and then they're on the road here at Dallas. Of course, the traditional game in the afternoon. Dallas opened as a 2-point favorite with a 47-point total. In Circa, it's 2.5 points at home with a 46-point total. Dallas played great against Minnesota. They knocked me out of Survivor single-handedly because Minnesota's defense stinks. And usually Dallas is okay on I don't think they're great on Thanksgiving like Detroit, but any interest in Washington here? I like their defense, but Dallas is playing much better defensively, aren't they?
Yeah. I would probably have a lean to Dallas, actually, especially at 2.5. I think that Andy Dalton came back and played well last week, and You saw Zeke go off for 100 yards against a pretty decent Vikings defense. So I would probably have a lean to the Cowboys in this one. Happy to play against Alex Smith as well on the flip side.
Right. It's interesting, again, like by the numbers, it's hard to figure out with this team. The Cowboys were so good offensively early in the season, and that's almost flipped, right? Their defense has played markedly better in the last 4 weeks. I do like how the Redskins played last week against Dallas. Maybe it was a beat up, Detroit. Maybe it was a beat up team, but they played a lot better and they look good. McLaurin, for me, if he doesn't play, then I'm all over this number for Dallas for sure.
Yeah.
The next game, I guess we'll just move to the 1 o'clock window, is the Baltimore-Pittsburgh game. This is the second match of the season at Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh opened as a 3-point favorite at home, 45.5. That was supposed to be played primetime on Thursday, now moved to the 1 o'clock window on Sunday. Circa has it at 4-point favorite for Pittsburgh, 45-point total here. Interesting. We've talked about this game a lot in past seasons. Traditionally, this sticks around that three-point number. So Circa's making a decision here to push it past the 3. I don't like the Ravens, but the number is really intriguing. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I agree. It's a tough position to be in because, on the surface you have to look at Pittsburgh, and they did win the first meeting in Baltimore this season. They've got the undefeated record coming in, and the Ravens are not playing very well, especially on offense right now.
Right.
And the last time we saw Baltimore, they laid an egg on Sunday night against the Patriots. So
they did.
I definitely feel like that Pittsburgh is the side with the advantage in this game, but it's hard to lay 4 points. I mean, you got to expect, even without the 2 running backs, that Gus Edwards is going to be involved pretty heavily. And
yep.
I'm sure the Steelers will have a similar game plan, trying to shut down the Ravens' running attack and make Lamar Jackson throw the ball. But if you look back at the box score in the first game, Baltimore actually pretty well dominated them in the yardage department. And I think it was a little bit of a misleading final score. So having said all that, I think the values got to be with the Ravens. Yeah, right.
Yeah. Four turnovers for Lamar Jackson in that game. I think that's why they lost the game. So we talked about that against the Steelers. He has turned the ball over, but you're saying you would lean Ravens over Steelers, but are you thinking stay away for the contest?
Yeah, I think it's probably a pass, just given all of the unknowns. We don't even know who's going to be out there on Sunday. So it's hard to pick a team where they could be missing a number of players by game time.
Yeah, exactly. Well, if we find out Big Ben doesn't play, I guess I'll take the +4 for Baltimore, right?
Certainly.
Yeah. Here's a game that's intriguing to you, of course, the Titans, who they actually beat Pittsburgh. They beat the Ravens in overtime last week. Really big game. Going to the Colts. This is one of those division games they played just a week and a half ago, right, or 2 weeks ago tomorrow.
Yeah.
And in the second half, the Colts dominated to win this game. They opened up as a 4-point favorite at home, 50-point total. In the contest, it's 3 points for Indianapolis, 51-point total. I'm not going to say anything. I want to hear what your take on handicap on this game is so far.
Well, I like the Titans. I was really hoping that we could get a little bit of a hook or even a 4 in this one. I think it opened at 4.5, even at 1 or 2 books, but clearly you've seen some money pour in on the Tennessee side this early week, and I think it's for good reason. They certainly, at least in the beginning of that game 2 weeks ago, Thursday night, they had the edge. I mean, they were winning at halftime, and in the opening drive, if you recall, they had drop back passes. They were kind of foregoing their standard run game, shading to the run game, and I think that is the recipe for getting at this Colts defense. And I hope that Art Smith and company will have a bit better game plan this time.
Yeah, it seemed like this. Well, I don't know if I watched that Ravens Colts game last week quite a bit. Early in the game, and I know that part of it is it's a stout Ravens defense, not as good as the Colts defense, by the way, against the run. And they just were kind of going away from Henry, and then it's just kind of, let's see if Tannehill can connect with Brown or whatever. Later in that game, they just were pounding Henry. Now, the Colts obviously have played really well in the second half, the last 2 weeks, and its adjustments. The only concern I guess I would have is that I do think, we know Rivers and his turnovers and stuff kill the handicap. It's just, will they go away from that running game? They got to commit to it and stay with it. I think when they played in Tennessee, it felt like they got away from it again when they got down a little bit. So it may be a stay away for me, but I think I'm on your side with the Titans here.
Yeah, I mean, certainly have the revenge factor too, and I'll add that Phillip Rivers is dealing a little bit with a banged up toe. I heard say on Monday in the presser that he could barely walk when he woke up on Monday morning because of this toe issue. So if the Titans are able to stop the Colts running game and make Phillip Rivers beat them, that could be another advantage on their side as well.
Okay. The next one is interesting. Carolina against Minnesota. I'm guessing this is because of Teddy Bridgewater didn't have an opening number. Mm-hmm. So it looks like it's 4 in the contest for Minnesota. It's a really interesting line here, action. I'm seeing, let me just see the total that I saw. Let's see here, Panthers. I'm looking at like a 50.5 point total, at least what I saw, I guess, at Rivers. Now, this is a weird Minnesota team, and Carolina's strange too. It's hard to predict. Last week they played excellently. They dominated in that game. They won easily. So I'm not sure who to believe, who's gonna show up for Carolina, because they've looked kind of crummy the 2 weeks before they played great against the Chiefs, and then they played great last week. Minnesota, they let me down personally, obviously playing I think an improved Dallas defense. I don't think Carolina's defense is all that great, but should Minnesota really be favored by 4 points right now?
No, I don't think so. Not certainly going on to the – oh, no, this is a home game for Minnesota, rather.
Yeah, it's home game.
They're going to be without Thielen. For all intents, it looks like that Thielen is going to miss with COVID, and I'm reading that Coach Rule expects Bridgewater to play on Sunday, but they're still going to be without C-Mac, Christian McCaffrey.
Sure.
And I think that I like the Carolina side in this game. I don't expect that the Vikings offense will be able to line up and run it like they have been in weeks past. They're missing a couple of offensive linemen. It looks like that tackle Ezra Cleveland and on the tight end Irv Smith is going to be limited. So I'm not sure that Dalvin Cook will be able to just line up and run it against them like he has in weeks past.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just it's can Minnesota's defense play do anything? And last week they were terrible. They were getting crushed. So can Carolina run the ball effectively and kind of mix in the play action game? We'll see. I would like to know if Bridgewater's going to play. That would probably influence us quite a bit in this one.
Sure.
Let's go to the next one. Cleveland and Jacksonville. Cleveland is at Jacksonville. They were opened as a 6-point favorite on the road, 47-point total. They're up to a 6.5-point favorite in the contest, 49-point total. First of all, how easy is Cleveland's schedule this year? Garbage. This is why I had them in the playoffs. Now when I keep looking at it, every week they've got terrible opponents besides the Ravens and Steelers. 6.5 points on the road, huh? I mean, they should dominate Jacksonville theoretically, right? I mean, Jacksonville doesn't want to win. It's a lot of points, though. I'm not going to back Jacksonville, but I don't know if I can back Cleveland either.
Yeah, and it came out today that Mike Glennon will be suiting up as the starter for the Jags. So
thank you for bringing that up. I forgot.
Round and round we go on the quarterback carousel. And I don't really know what to make of that, to be quite honest. My gut tells me that he's going to be a slight improvement over Jake Luton. Okay. But still don't think that is going to get me to the window with the Jags here. I think it's going to have to be Browns or pass.
So, I mean, and you follow this better than I. If it's got Joe Jackson and Myles Garrett who are on the list, are they just traced or are they out, like IR kind of situation?
I believe that I don't know for certain that he's tested positive, but I'm fairly sure that Myles Garrett is out for certain this weekend. I'm not sure about Garrett though. Okay. It's a name that I don't know much about.
Yeah, it's just to me it's kind of like Glennon's a statue. I saw him in Chicago. You saw him here. But if they don't have a pass rush, he'll be fine.
Right.
You know,
Right.
and they do really feature the running game. And I don't know how well the Browns stop the run, but yeah, it's just a pass game for me. Actually, it's love to jump on board, but Jacksonville has covered a couple numbers 2 weeks in a row now, right? They covered it
Yeah.
a pack, and now what was last week? Shoot, I'm blanking. Damn it, I can't remember now. I don't think
Did they play this last week, or were they on bye?
No, I thought they did. Maybe I'm smoking it. Sorry, America. Pre-senior moment, apparently.
They got beat by the Steelers.
Oh, that's
week.
right.
Yeah.
They didn't cover. That's right. They got crushed by the Steelers. Hence the change. So I guess last week they got beat. That was a really good defense. So, all right. Okay, next game. We've got the Giants at Cincinnati. Cincinnati opened as a 2.5-point favorite. It's probably before the Burrow injury. 45-point total. Now it's flipped all the way to 6-point favorites for the Giants on the road. 43-point total. Whew. You know, when I first saw this game, I, just like America here, was thinking, I'm really ready to back the Giants. You know, I mean, they're playing better. 6 points? Come on. I mean, it's a smart line. It's going to make you pause on the Giants, but you can't back Cincinnati here, can you?
Well, initially I was ready to line up and go push all my chips in against Cincinnati because I thought Ryan Finley was going to be the starting quarterback. But then I heard today that they've got this guy, Brandon Allen, who is going to be starting over Ryan Finley. And that gives me a little bit more hope for their ability to cover in this one. I mean, the bottom line is that the Giants are not a football team who should be laying 6 points on the road against anyone. And
I agree.
I don't think they're capable of getting margin. So I think that if we're going to be picking this game, it has to be the Bengals. As ugly as it might seem, I think it's going to be a defensive slugfest a bit, total 43. And I think that as the total might dip a little bit more heading into the weekend, that 6 becomes even more valuable.
Right. Would you have the stones to do it in the contest, though?
I think so. Yeah, I mean, we can see where we get down the line here, but I certainly think that the Bengals will be a contrarian play for this week's contest.
No question. No question, contrarian. Okay, well, let's keep it as a maybe then. I mean, it's makes sense. The logic makes sense. Here's another one. Miami, who opened up as a 7-point favorite on the road. The Jets are 46 with a 46-point total. In the contest, it's the same number, 7-point favorite for Miami, 44-point total. You think that Tua's going to start. That's the theory. You know, I've been back in Miami quite a bit this year, like them. This is the game I'm worried about, action. I know it sounds stupid, but the Jets are going to win a game. I promise you they're going to win a game this year. And I think Miami's the better team. There's no question. But I'm, a dog at home, this is like their last stand, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's definitely a tough spot for the Dolphins, too, traveling out of Denver, heading back east for a division game. Like you mentioned, though, this is going to be a huge game for the Dolphins to keep their chances alive in the division. And knowing Coach Flores' history, I don't expect he's going to allow them to have a letdown here.
Right.
But 7 is definitely a little tough. I was really hoping to see a 6.5, and I'm going to hold out for one personally and jump on the Dolphins at 6.5. But I can see where we might have some pause here for a contest pick.
Yeah, it's just, when I look inside the numbers a little bit, the Dolphins' offense is pretty bad. I mean, they're 29th in yards per game. Of course, the Jets are the worst, 32. And what's weird about the Dolphins, we talk about their defense quite a bit. They kind of and obviously it makes sense because Flores came from New England, they kind of do the bend but not break. I mean, they're 21st in yards per game against, but they're somehow 4th against with points against. The classic, New England style. Give up all the yards but get tough in the red zone and don't give up points. It didn't work last week, right? Especially because they couldn't score, and that's kind of what I'm looking at their totals. That are, they don't score a lot of points, but they kind of survive on those turnovers and those extra plays like we talked about. If it was Fitzmagic, I'd actually feel a little bit better about it, just because I think this road spot, even though the Jets are crummy, it's still a division game, right? And they haven't played a division game in a minute. They haven't played anybody in the division since, I don't know, maybe mid October or something. So I'm not saying I'm back in the Jets, but I'm definitely not all over the Miami here.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned it, but the way to get after that Jets defense is through the air, 32nd ranked against the pass, and I'm not sure that Tua is quite set up to do that just yet. It does look like he's nursing a thumb injury on his throwing hand, though, which I wasn't aware of. So that could be a little factor going into Sunday between him and Fitzmagic.
Maybe that's why he got pulled.
Right.
All right, next game, intriguing. Vegas, the Raiders go to Atlanta. They opened as a pick, 56-point total. Now they're up to a 3-point favorite on the road, 55.5-point total. I know you got your Raiders hat on, or you went to Vegas to get it because you love this team. Atlanta didn't play well last week, and I think that Julio definitely is a factor for this. But I don't like the Raiders -3 here. I like Atlanta, and I think it's not that I think Atlanta's a great team. I just think the Raiders' defense isn't that great, so I think Atlanta can score, and I think they'll be able to keep up. What do you think?
Full agreement here. I love Atlanta as well, especially at this number. Getting 3 at home against the Raiders is certainly pretty serious value. Right. And actually, quietly, the Atlanta defense, for as bad as you might think they seem, their rush defense is actually quite good, 10th ranked in DVOA against the rush, and that's where the Raiders really like to set the tone in matchups. So I think that Atlanta might be able to hold down this Raiders attack a little bit, get them off the field, and then, like you mentioned, Matt Ryan and Julio Jones and Ridley are certainly going to have success against that Raiders pass defense. So you can count me in for that one.
All right, let's put that in. Put it in green. Put it in green action. We got this one.
Green it is. Green for cash.
All right. Next one, a lot of 1 o'clock games, as we said. Arizona is going to New England. Arizona opened as a 1-point favorite on the road, 48-point total. Now they're up to 2.5-point favorite in the contest, 49-point total. Obviously, I'd like to see Kyler Murray, if he's playing or not, in this one. New England, as you kind of predicted, put up a stinker last week. They just kind of sucked on the road against a good passing attack in Houston. If you've got Murray at the helm, 2 seems reasonable, but this team isn't great at, I don't know. Like, they haven't played great the last couple of weeks. Their defense isn't that great. I guess what I'll ask is, what's Arizona's rush defense? Because New England, that's all they want to do is run the ball.
Yeah, that is a great question, because I think that is really going to be the matchup in this game. If that Arizona defense can do anything to stop Cam Newton and the Patriots attack, I think that they cover this number easily.
Right.
13th ranked against the pass and 14 against the run are the Cardinals.
Middle, so not bad.
Pretty much dead even. But I think on the other side, you've got an Arizona offense that has been playing a lot better of late. Kenyon Drake came back and looked really, really sharp last week. And I think that this New England Patriots defense is very porous against the run. So I expect that Kyler Murray and his compatriots in the backfield are going to be able to have a heyday against them. And I really like Arizona, even on the road.
Okay. So what if we got to make sure that Murray's going to play, though, right?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, he was nursing that shoulder throughout the second half on Thursday night and continued to forge on. So I fully expect him to be out there.
Okay, great. Well, we'll put that as a yellow. That's the maybe, everybody. All right, here's an interesting one. Chargers, Anthony Lynn, going to be fired soon. Going to Buffalo, you've got Buffalo as a 6-point favorite on the opener, 50-point total. In the contest, they're 5.5-point favorites at home, 53.5-point total. Look, McDermott's lights out, hands down, 1,000% better than Lynn, as a coach. I don't love this number, though. It's pretty big. Buffalo hasn't played great defensively. The Chargers will score in this game. So I do like the total. I mean, it's gone up, obviously. I kind of like the Chargers. I don't want to back them, man. I don't want to back these guys. But, God, it's like every week it's the same thing. I just 5.5 as a dog seems pretty good for the Chargers.
Yeah. I had the same emotions that you did looking through this game today. And I totally agree. The number just screams to bet the Chargers.
Yeah.
But then you got to think about Anthony Lynn. And it's like, do I really want to back Anthony Lynn, especially against McDermott, who has shown that he and the offensive coordinator, whose name escapes me, Dayball, have shown the ability to change up the game plan week after week to go against their opponent. And the coaching advantage in this game is massive for the Bills. I will add in here before we move on, though, I love the over. I think that this Chargers passing attack has shown some serious dynamic this year, and going against the Buffalo Bills defense just screams points. So I definitely think that over 53 and a half now is a slam dunk. And I certainly think we should keep a maybe on the Chargers if you're open to that.
Yeah, I'm open to that. I think I've got it on my list, so it's definitely one we'll consider for sure. Put that as a yellow. I mean, it is that classic 1 o'clock spot on the East Coast for a West Coast team, but it's kind of like, man, I mean, this is the spot where everybody's like, Anthony Lynn sucks, blah, 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 you know. I kind of wanted the number to be bigger, but when I saw the 6, my eyes lit up, but, we'll see how it goes.
Well, I mean, we touched on it earlier. It's a different handicap when you're playing them as a underdog versus laying 8 or 9.5 like they were last week.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so now here we go. San Francisco is going to the Rams. They're coming off the bye. I don't think they're getting that much healthier, but the Rams opened as a 7-point favorite at home, 46.5-point total. In the contest, it's still 7 for the Rams, 45-point total. I don't know who's going to play for San Francisco, but I'm on the Niners here. I don't know why, but I think it's a division game. We like this division road dog situation, this narrative, but more importantly, come on, like the Rams are really good. I like them. They don't blow anybody out though right now, do they? I mean, they can play low scoring games or they can go up like when they played at Tampa, but I think the Niners will just give them a game. It's going to be a slugfest to me, and I think that 7 is definitely on the Niners side.
Yeah, I agree. Again, this is another agreement. I think the Niners are definitely the side here. If you recall, they were in a similar spot at home earlier in the season against the Rams, catching 3.5, I believe. And even with all the injuries, they came out and just totally dominated the Rams in San Francisco that night. And I think they're going to get a little bit healthier this week. I'm reading that Deebo Samuel is going to be back this week. And they're also going to get back a couple of defensive linemen. Eric Armstead looks like he'll be back. And the running back, Tevin Coleman. So even without Jimmy G, and I think Kittle is definitely still out, they're getting a little bit healthier on that side of the ball. And I think 7 points is a lot for this game.
Let's do it. I'm going green on this one.
All right, on board.
I think so. It's really interesting how sometimes these games lay out that way.
Yeah.
Here's an interesting game. New Orleans is going to Denver. Denver has covered some numbers at home, at least not when we back them. But they're 5.5. They opened as a 5.5-point favorite. New Orleans at Denver, 46-point total. It's up to 6 in the contest, 43.5-point total. I do like these Saints. I think they're turning the corner in general. Don't love this Denver team. Don't love that it's 6 points though. Did like 5.5 better. I know it sounds strange, but would you still back the Saints in this spot?
Yeah, I think for me it's going to be Saints or pass. No doubt. I'm not sure that a Drew Lock offense right now is capable of doing much damage against this New Orleans defense, which has just been playing on another level lately.
Yep.
They're now 3rd ranked in DVOA and 2nd against the rush, 5th against the pass. And I'm interested in playing a Broncos team total under this weekend. I like the game under, but really love Broncos team total under, and I think that laying the points with New Orleans is the way to go.
Okay.
What do you think?
I do too. I mean, it's one of my picks this week. I mean, it's hard. I've got a few games identified, but at the top of the chart, you look at the index, they're way better than the Broncos. Broncos aren't a very good football team. That's why, it wasn't surprising that they covered against Miami because of the kind of lack of offense for Miami, but the Saints have enough offense, and that defense is shutting people down. So I don't know if Denver's going to score 10 points in this game, to be honest with you.
Right. Agreed.
Oh, wow. We're agreeing too much action. Okay, so Kansas City against Tampa. Should be a laser light show, but we'll see. Kansas City opened up as a 3-point favorite on the road at Tampa, 54-point total. And in the contest, it's 3.5-point total for Kansas City, 56-point total. I mean, I'm not going to get in front of the Chiefs here. I don't know if I can really back Tampa. I know it's not a primetime spot. That's not what I'm saying. I just, I don't know. They make it 3.5 to make a decision on it. I do think the Chiefs, I mean, they're really close in the index, to be honest with you. I mean, the Chiefs are the best team in the index by kind of far, but they're not that far off. So I'm a little surprised there's the hook, but I don't think that still entices me enough to take the box here.
Yeah, I think you're right on there. It does look like the Chiefs are going to be back to full strength. It sounds like McCole Hardman will be back this week. Mm-hmm. But I'm going to question their motivation going into this game. Sure. You have a non-conference opponent. The win on Sunday essentially all but locked up the division, and it's appearing increasingly less likely that they'll be able to really compete with Pittsburgh for that number 1 seed to get the home field advantage spot. So I have every expectation that the Chiefs are going to have a letdown on Sunday in this matchup, and I expect that it should be a great game, but I would only look to the Bucs if we were going to play it.
Okay. Yeah, let's stay away. I mean, I totally get the logic. It makes sense, especially with the hook. I just don't know if I can. I just think that Andy Reid will outcoach Arians. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, you can see a field goal though.
We've been wrong on Bucs games all year, so I'm happy to leave them off.
Stay away. Okay, here we go. Game near and dear to my heart here. The Bears are going to Green Bay. They're coming off the bye action, guns a-blazing. 7.5-point favorites were the opener for Green Bay at home. It's up to 9.5 in the contest. God. I mean, I get it. I understand why. I can't back the Packers at that number. It's way too many points against the Bears. I just don't know if I have the stomach to take the Bears for the contest. I mean, I will probably, if I got 9.5 in my contest, the home contest, I'll take it with the Bears. But, damn, that is a big number.
Yeah, and I really going to kind of ask why is the number going? I mean, it's not a move off of the prospective Nick Foles absence. No. Is it? At this point, I think going back to Trubisky might be the right move. I mean, at least he can run to save his life. Foles is so immobile, and he can't hit an open receiver right now to save his life. Right. So I think the Bears would be the play here, but the guy that I'm interested in looking at before playing this game is Akeem Hicks, because if he's out there, he's going to be in Aaron Rodgers' face all night. And you saw this past week with pressure in his face, Aaron Rodgers is just not the same quarterback. Right. So if that Bears defensive line is healthy and ability to get pressure on him, I think they can cover this number more often than not.
Yeah, I mean, the Packers, this year they've been a really good offense, but that's when they're doing both run and pass. And if the Bears can shut down the run, Hicks is huge on that, by the way. But if they can shut it down and just make him throw, I do like the Bears, especially at 9.5. But you mentioned, let's see who they have. Let me look at the injury report real quick. Yeah, Foles did not practice today. He's questionable. Is Trubisky back? Is he officially back?
I think so.
Okay, so it is going Trubisky. Again, I mean, Mitch, good God, he's broken my heart many a times, but the Bears are known for this. Even when they're actually doing okay this season, but if they're even in crappy seasons, they'll go up to Green Bay and beat this team. It's weird. It's one of those things, like it's the opposite of Minnesota. They can always beat Minnesota at home, not this year, but then they go up to Green Bay and give them a tough game. So I'm not going to back him in the contest, but I'm definitely personally on the Bears in this one.
Yeah, Trubisky listed as probable.
Okay, great. Last game, Seattle is going to Philly. Seattle opened as a 3.5-point favorite on the road, 53-point total. It's up to a 5-point favorite for Seattle on the road, 50-point total. Oh, God, I hate the friggin' Eagles, dude. And I'll tell you this one thing with my company loves the Eagles. Like they sing the fight song at the meetings and stuff, and this team stinks, but this is too many points for Seattle, right? I mean, are they really going to cover 5 points on the road?
Wow, I kind of missed the move on this one. I don't really know what's precipitating it,
Well,
to be honest
did they
with you.
switch to Hertz or, I don't know. I don't think so.
Yeah.
I saw there was discussion about it on like some of the media, but I didn't think they actually went all the way to Hertz in this one.
Huh. Well, yeah, I'm not really sure. I agree with you right off the bat. I liked Seattle quite a bit, laying 3 in this one, but the move to 5 certainly is a bit different. It looks like Lane Johnson is going to be questionable, as well as Jason Peters,
Right.
both key offensive linemen, and the center Jason Kelsey. So that's maybe a part of the reason, but also could just have to do with the Eagles' performance on Sunday, which was just putrid against the Browns.
Right. Now we are talking about the Seattle's defense is terrible. Now they played okay against Kyler Murray, but they still gave up their points. So what about the total in this one?
Yeah, I mean, I would have to think that over has got to be the play, although you've seen the move from 53 down to 50 already, which correlates with the side move there.
Yep.
Seattle's defense is actually not bad against the rush, 8th ranked. It's really the pass where they're giving up gobs of yardage. And I'm not really sure that Carson Wentz is capable of taking advantage of that right now.
No, I mean, they're 26th in yards per game, the Eagles are, and 22nd in points. Yeah, it'd be an interesting game. I just don't love that side. 5 points is a lot of points for Seattle in this game. A road team that, they've played pretty well on the road. I guess they won at Miami. That was an interesting game, and they've played okay in years past. Like last year, they were great on the road, but I don't know. Maybe it's a stay away for us action.
I think so.
If we could stay away from Sunday, I enjoyed those games so much more this week when we didn't take Sunday night and Monday night football.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, great. Well, let's review as we go into the Circa picks for week 12, not week 11. It is week 12, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Week 12.
So
last week of the third quarter.
That's right. The last week of the third quarter. That's right. We got to turn it to the fourth. So, we went 3-2 last week. We had a pretty good week. After 11 weeks, we're a little over 500, which I know is better than last year. So, we're doing better than last year. We're up to 932nd place after that dip the week before. We're probably out for the third quarter action, even if we go undefeated. So, won't even mention that. But it seems like we're on some similar games here. Saints, obviously on the road. I guess are they up to 6? Is that what it was? Or is it 5?
Yeah.
Okay. 6 there. It looks like we're both on San Francisco getting points at LA, getting 7 points. We have to talk about the Washington game. But we're both on the Falcons, or was that a maybe for us?
Yep,
okay.
Correct.
Both
no,
three
we
of
both
the Falcons. And then some of our maybes, which that may be one of them, the Anthony Lynn special. We're talking about maybe Cincinnati getting 6 points at home against the Giants. Arizona covering on the road 2.5 at New England. And then those Chargers. Oh, those Chargers. Give me the Maylocks, buddy. 5.5 point dogs on the road at Buffalo. But we have a case there, right?
Yeah. I certainly think that the number is good. And we also had a highlight on Tennessee.
Oh, okay.
Catching the 3 in the division game.
That's right. Certainly a lot more contested in that one, I guess. But
True.
Yeah, I feel like we definitely have the makings of getting some picks here. I think we're on the same side on some, and more importantly, some of these numbers, I'm not saying they don't make sense, but we're kind of looking at the number. I guess we could probably talk through, on Saturday whenever we're going to talk about the contrarian picks. We've kind of been pretty good the last couple of weeks, even when we had a terrible week, to not pick the main what everybody else is picking, and it's kind of helped us ultimately stay up in somewhat in the standings.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, now getting to the point in the season where the contrarian picks do go a lot further. If we can avoid the heavy picked games, we can make up some ground against our competitors.
And the last at least 3-4 weeks, it seems like the consensus picks are all favorites. I mean, they're still going favorites. And I don't know who's picking exactly, but it seems like everybody's maybe going to safety. I don't really know what they're thinking. we still look at the numbers. We're trying to pick underdogs. Action loves the dogs. But, I mean, for me, it's just kind of sometimes it's glaring. Why are you pick all favorites? I mean, some of these numbers that Circa puts out there are really tough to hit.
Yeah, definitely. But I think that if we build some momentum here in week 12, we can carry that into the fourth quarter and hopefully close strong and have a chance at the quarter and maybe even get into the money.
Yeah, I've been trying to track, trying to get in the top 50. We're a few picks back, but we can make up ground. We made up a pick last week or 2 picks last week, so it's just the one we had the 0-5 that kind of hurt us. So.
Right. Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, it wraps up the episode. Thanks everybody for listening. Let's get some comments. I did see a comment out there. Thank you. A like, subscribe, tell your grandma, tell everybody at Thanksgiving dinner. It's time to listen to the Side Action Podcast. Follow us at Side Action Pod on Twitter and YouTube, and follow me at Wegspool on Twitter and Instagram.
And follow me on Twitter at 31sroberts.
All right. Well, happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Enjoy the football that you have, and good luck at the book.
Yeah, stay safe with the family, and hopefully we can pick out some winners both tomorrow and Sunday for everybody this week.
That's right. Absolutely. All right. Take care.
That's a wrap for this episode of the Side Action Podcast. We appreciate all of your listens, and thank you for joining us. We'll see you all again next week on Thursday for some more hot picks and side action. Side Action Podcast, its owners and associates take no responsibility for the opinions or statements made by the show hosts or their guests. Statements or show topics are not necessarily the beliefs of this podcast, and opinions between talk show hosts may conflict. Individuals following the advice given on the podcast accept their own risk of losses from wagers made, as the Side Action Podcast, its owners, hosts, associates, or guests will not guarantee any advice given. The opinions and advice given on the Side Action Podcast is for entertainment purposes only. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Intro and outro and transition music credits. Song titles Jerry 5 and District 4 by Kevin MacLeod at incompetech.org. Licensed under Creative Commons Attribution 3.0. creativecommons.org/licenses/by 3.0.